Welcome back to ClickFunnels Quick Start Blueprint. This is Dan Havey with CFninjaHacks, and today we're going to continue looking at the funnel editor page. And what we're going to specifically look at today is the beginning of the sections, rows, and columns. This will probably be broken up into 3 different sections just to not overly complicate things. So what we're going to do today is pretty much just look at what is on the screen right here. And as you see, as you move your mouse around, we get our different colors representing the green, which is our sections. We get the blue, which represents our rows, and then we get the orange for the elements. And as I said in one of the earlier videos, there is no color for the columns. And in fact, there's no drop down for the columns either, you see as you move your mouse along like this. So the first thing we want to look at is what can we do just in the little green box right here. And of course, we can click on the gear to open up our settings. And we're not going to look at the settings in this video. But we can also come in and click on the clone button, and we can clone that entire section. And we can also save the section. So as we had talked earlier about the templates that you can put into your account settings, we can also create templates for our sections like this, which then you can pull into other funnels, or you can just pull it into this funnel again, as you will see. So we're just going to call this section 123 just to give it a name, and then we're going to say save the section. And now let's pretend that we're in a totally different funnel, because it works exactly the same whether you're in another funnel or in this funnel. And we're going to come up here to sections, and we're going to say we want to add a section. And we're going to come down here to My Sections, and here is that section 123 I just created. And so we can take this out and we can drop it into any one of the areas that will allow us to drop it. And so we just put that in right there. And now, of course, we don't really need all these, so we can come in and we can delete out this first one, hit OK. And again, we can click on OK, or we can just hit enter, and it will take care of deleting those. Also in these sections, you can come over here to the top, and you can click on the up or the down arrows, and that will move the entire section down on the page. So we just moved down, the second one moved up, and now we can just click on the arrow, move that right back up into place. So let's take a look at a couple more things here, because we're going to say now we want to, well, let's just go here to manage first. So we can manage our sections, and again, if you click on the section name, that is the data title technically for the section, it will open up the editor again, or the settings again, and we'll get back into that in the next video. And then you can also from here move these sections up and down. So you see here it moved up and down as well, and then we will move that right back up into place. Also, what you can do is you can hide the section. So now the section is hidden, and we could hide all 3 of them if we were to choose. But what I'm going to show you here now really quickly, and what I'll do is I'll delete, well, let me do this first. Let's go into the rows, and let's go to manage the rows. So we see now here, we have our section, we have the section clone, and we have sections. So if we had named this section, in fact, let's just do this. Let's add a section. Let's grab a hold of My Sections. Let's pull this into the top. Now let's come back to manage our sections, and it should have, I thought it was going to change this here to section 123. It didn't, but it did put in this additional section, and we'll get to that in probably the 3rd video on how you can change this name right here. But what I wanted to show you is if we go now into rows, we're going to see these 4 different rows inside of each of the individual sections right there. But if we come in and we hide, let's just hide the first 2 sections, and now we come into our rows, you see right now that section does not show here anymore. So if you ever come into the rows, the columns, or the elements, and you go, hey, where the heck are all those things? Chances are that either the section or the row had been hidden, and that's why you're no longer seeing them inside of the elements. So here is the row, and as you see here, as I move along, it always highlights what you're over in blue, whether it's a section, a row, or an element. It will always highlight that, but then again, it will not show us what was in those first 2 sections because they have been essentially removed from the page. So now let's come back in, we will turn them back on, and now in our rows they are back once again, And the same thing with our elements are back again, and again everything is highlighted as I move down the page, and of course all the columns will be back in here as well. And then a couple last things inside of the section. Let's go back here again to add the section. And of course we can add different sizes of sections. It's only in the sections that you can add different sizes. So again here I just pulled in a full width. Well, we don't really need one that's full width. So what we can do is we can go into our settings and we can say here, we don't want the full page. We want this one just to be wide. So we'll make that one wide. Let's come back here to add another section. We have already, all the rest of them down here are full width. We just put in one that was wide. Let's put in one that is medium. We'll plunk that in. And as you see here, they keep getting obviously more narrow as we go along. And then let's put in, oops, that's easy enough to do. Let's put in small. Quite often I'll come in and obviously click on the wrong thing. So now we got a small one. But what you might have noticed is that there's actually one size smaller than that. So we'll come in here and we can go to extra small. So now we have all these different sizes. And let's just grab this one here and let's give it some background color because we know that none of the rest of these have any background color. And the reason I'm doing that is because just to show you that anything you have behind here for a color will of course show up. Now all the rest of these should at some point probably get a background color on them. But the point of the matter is if you have these rows here and they are not full width on the page, obviously whatever's in the background will show up behind them. So just be aware of that as you're building out, that whatever's in the background will show through. And a lot of times that's exactly what you want, but obviously this is how you can then do that. So let's just come in and let's just do the quickest way to start deleting is we'll come in and just click on the garbage can and we'll get rid of those ones at the top, which we don't need anymore. And now let's go back in to add a section one more time. And over here on the right, you have actions as well. So let's create some actions. And basically what they are is pre-built section templates. So let's take one of these section templates and let's just drop it in here. Now what you're seeing is it's not giving me a drop zone. And that's because this happens quite often in ClickFunnels. So all you have to do is save and then exit out of the page. You don't really want to reload the page. You always want to use the exit button whenever leaving one of these pages. So now we're back in here. Let's add an action again. Let's scroll down to the bottom. Let's grab this one and we will drop this in. See, now the drop zone is working, whereas it was not working before. So now we dropped in that action right here. And then you can, of course, you come in and edit it just like you would any other section, rows, columns, elements, the whole thing. But we also have here some other pre-built things known as content. So let's grab a hold of a content element and let's put that down here below this one. And so again, we got a 3-column row with some icons and a couple of text elements in a full column. Now, I will tell you right now, there is one thing inside of ClickFunnels here, and people struggle with this a lot, so I shot a video on it, and I'll show you that in a second, that the rows in here, if you have a full width column, the row in there is still limited to a max of 1170 pixels. And because it is at that width, you can't make it come all the way out here to the edge. A lot of times you want to have your images way over here on the right-hand side or left-hand side, and people will purposely put images over here and kind of snake them back and forth down the page. Well, in order to do that, you have to change the width on the page. So what we do is we'll come in and right here, how to set your section, rows, and columns to 100% width. And one other thing you will find is when you are working on rows, and I'll show you this here in a second, you also end up with a bunch of padding on the outer edges and padding between the different columns in the rows. And so this video walks you through how to essentially get rid of all the padding, all the margin, all of the maximum widths in order to make everything the size that you want to on your page. And it just takes a couple lines of CSS code, and I show you everything you need to know inside of that video. So let me see here, was there anything else in the sections that we had to do? And the answer is, I think no. Like I said, in the next video we will get into the settings, and then in the third video even a little bit of higher end stuff. So now we have our sections taken care of. So now the next thing we have is our rows, and again we have the exact same thing as before. We have settings, we have cloning, we can save it as a template. So let's just call this template a bunch of ones there. We will save that, and then again we can come in, we can go, oops, we need to add a row this time, and we're going to say my rows, and we will grab it, pull it in, and drop in that row, assuming again you're in a different funnel, but it works the same either way. Now with the rows, let's come in here, let's add a row. We have 1 column, 2 column, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have one with a left sidebar and one with a right sidebar, which realistically are only 2 column rows with the center part here, the column part, pulled to the side. So here's your left sidebar and here's your right sidebar, and you of course can move this back and forth any way you want. Now you're going to see here as I move it along, there are certain sticking points. And there's a reason for that, and it's because that ClickFunnels is built on a framework known as Bootstrap. Now, Bootstrap was invented by Twitter in order to make pages more responsive, make it able that you can line things up better on a mobile device or an iPad or something like that. And how it works is there are 12 columns on the page, so 12 vertical columns on the page, and each one has what is known as a gutter, G-U-T-T-E-R, between each of those 12 columns. So that's where I said before, it's like you're always going to have like this padding between your columns. That's because there's that gutter in between there to give them that padding. And again, the video shows you how to get rid of that padding in between. So like I said, you got 12 different variations here, 12 different spots you can go to. So here you have one bootstrap column in this ClickFunnels column. So you got to kind of keep up with me here. So you got ClickFunnels columns and you got bootstrap columns. So here you have one bootstrap column inside of this left ClickFunnels column. And as we move it over, then you're going to have 2 bootstrap columns, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we can keep going across. So as we put in a row that has three columns in it, when you start off, each one of these ClickFunnels columns will contain 4 bootstrap columns. So we can move this over 1, 2, 3 times, and now we'll still have 1 bootstrap column left, and of course then the other column in the middle gets bigger. And then we can just again, let's just click on the plus this time, we can put in a 4 column row or a 6 column row. Now simple math tells you that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 evenly divide into 12. So if we put in a 6 column row, you have 6 ClickFunnels columns, each containing 2 bootstrap columns. Okay, but now if we go in and put in a 5 column row, we're going to have a problem because 5 does not equally divide into 12. So you're always going to have one column here that is going to have to be a different size, or in this case here we got 2 columns now that are 3 bootstrap columns wide and 3 columns that are 2 bootstrap columns wide, or we can move this down to 1, and you get the idea. We can move these around however, but the point is you will not, with 5 column row, you will not ever have them all be exactly the same unless you use some custom CSS code, which then you could do it that way, but that's not for this training today. And now, just like we had with our sections where we had our arrows to move things up and down, we have the exact same thing inside of our rows. So we will click on our arrows and we can move our rows up and down on the page however we would like. That's really the easiest way to move them around on the page. Now we can come in here and we can go to manage and we can see about moving them. Let's see if this works or not. Okay, it is working fine. Sometimes in the past it hasn't worked very well, but it appears to me as though they got that fixed up and working just fine. And of course, again, here we have our eyeball that we can click on to hide the content. And again, if you hide a row, you're not going to be able to see the elements here in the drop down if the row is hidden. So just again, as always, be aware of that. If you're not seeing an element, it's probably because a row or a section has been hidden somewhere. And so now we have all of our different ones here. We went through our My Rows. Let's see here, manage. So of course we can clone it again like before, and we can delete things as well. We'll delete that one out of there just for the sake of doing it. And then just briefly for the columns, we can go in here, same thing as before. If you click on here or here, we can go into the settings and edit the columns. There's nothing else you can do with the columns besides show and hide them. And the truth is, I was looking at this the other day and I was like thinking, I cannot think of a case where I would create a column and then hide it. I think I was saying row, but I can't think of a case where I would create a column and then hide the column. So I'm not really sure. It's there, though, if you want to use it. And again, of course, we have our elements, whereas we can add an element by just simply dragging it into the screen, or we can add an element, of course, by clicking the plus button and putting in an element just by clicking on it, or we can add an element by dragging it in, as you've seen before. And then let's see here, to manage the elements, exact same thing. We can move them up and down. We can hide them if we so choose. And a lot of times you will do that. You'll hide elements, and then when somebody clicks on a button, you'll have it show, or you'll hide a section or a row, and when somebody clicks on a button, you can have it show or hide. Based on that, we can clone things and we can delete things as well. So that's all I'm going to go into in this video. It's been long enough. And then in the next ones, we're going to get more in depth in the section settings and the row settings, column settings. And then after that, we're going to go in depth into all of the elements. So as always, if you have any questions, just let me know.